everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 10 of Her Side of the Pitch. We have a fun one today. First of all, it's our 10th one, which we've come a long way. That is 10 podcasts with many more to come. We're going to have a special guest today, M's teammate from Utah, Michele. Can you say the last name?
Vasconcelos.
Thank you very much. But of course, before we have her on, we'll have a little catch up and talk a little bit more football on Tecker Talk. So to start off, you've had a few results since the last time we had this podcast. You had a tie against your Gordon, and you also beat Alexo at home 2-1. Don't know how that pronunciation was, but yeah, you had some impressive performances in those two games. So just kind of give a rundown of what happened.
You pronounced them, from my perspective, quite well, I think.
I'm practicing my Swedish to become Swedish one day.
Okay. I think you only have to live in Sweden for 5 years to get citizenship.
Okay, there's potential.
But yeah, your Gordon game was the game following the international break, I think. And yeah, it was a tough game. Your Gordon's having a good start to the season. And yeah, we played away at their place. It was a crazy game, back and forth. We conceded pretty early, and to be fair, we deserved to go down early. We did not start the game well. But yeah, we have a really strong mentality and good character within the team to fight our way back, and we had to do that a couple times. We were down 3-2 in like the 85th minute, and one of our strikers, Anam, came in and made an impact with, I think, her first touch, putting in the game-tying goal. And from there, we were a little bit in between of like, are we going for it? Are we just satisfied with the draw? Not much happened after that goal was scored, so it didn't actually matter what our mentality was, because the ball, as in many Damosvanskan games, the ball is out of bounds or not in play a lot of the time. But anyways, yeah, last weekend we played at home against Alingsås, and yeah, we remember from our first cup game away against them, they're a really tough opponent, despite them being bottom of the table and not having a point yet. They grind. They don't let anything be easy for you. And yeah, they went up in 45 seconds. They scored on us in the first half, just 45 seconds in, and really stunned us and our fans. But I don't think anybody put their heads down on our team. We had to be patient, created a lot of chances in the first half, couldn't capitalize on them. And then the second half, we scored off a corner kick. Took it with my left foot on the right side and found our fearless leader, captain, second shortest on the pitch next to myself. And she comes up with the header on the back post to tie it. And from there, I think we all knew we were going to find the winning goal. There was still like 35, 40 minutes left in the game. And yeah, eventually we did. And it was 60-something minute. Came inside, played a through ball to Anam, came inside when she played me the ball, and kind of put in a shot cross. I saw the run of Osla running across, and it was I wanted to put it in an area where if she touches it and scores, great. If she doesn't touch it but distracts the goalkeeper, it's going in. And yeah, it went in, and she didn't touch it. It didn't matter because, you know me, I really like to assist, so it doesn't really matter to me which way it went. But yeah, it was just nice to get the win and secure those points at home, because that's super important in this league, is to make sure we get all our points at home. But yeah, we play against Kristianstad, I think is how you say it, on Sunday, which is a long journey for us, but we're really looking forward to it, and we'll be on grass, which will be exciting. I love wearing my soft grounds.
And I will be wearing soft grounds most likely tomorrow too.
Yeah. Nicole is playing in the cup semifinal tomorrow at Hampton Park, which is just awesome. Before we get into like the rest of your thing, how excited are you about that?
Yeah, honestly, like, maybe I'm not Scottish, so to be playing kind of at their national stadium, the whole idea of it maybe it's not as like this whole, wow, it's a Scottish national stadium. But again, I've seen it kind of on TV. I've been there as a fan of a football game. There's no bigger stadium in Scotland to be playing on in a cup semifinal, in the Scottish Cup semifinal. So just massive all around. And then for me, it's slightly like, feels like not a full circle moment, but Ukraine, actually, the national team, we played against Scotland at Hampton Park. but I unfortunately missed that game due to COVID. I was sick on my couch. So it's cool that now, what, 4 years later, 3 years later, I'm now actually playing at Hampton, hopefully. And so, yeah, just really excited. Big game. It's what you play football for. So I think we're all just really excited to get out there. And I'm sure kind of when I step out on that pitch, it'll be really special to just like really see the stadium surrounding me.
Yeah, yeah, it's a historic stadium, so I think anytime it kind of gives not the exact same vibes, but similar vibes to playing at Wembley. It's kind of that same equivalent for Scotland, and I think that'll be really cool. I'll try to watch on the travels tomorrow. I'm not sure where I will be when you're playing, but we shall see. But let's go back to last week. We mentioned on the last podcast episode that you guys were entering a 3-game week. If you want to take us through how the results went in that.
Yeah, it was a crazy week, long week. And at the end of the week, the table had not changed. So every single top three team ended up winning one, tying one, losing one. Yeah, started the week well with a win. And then midweek, we had our game against Rangers that ended up being a 2-1 loss, which, again, it was a really frustrating one to lose in the sense I think both teams played a very strong game, and it honestly could have gone either way. Could have ended in a tie, could have been a win for either team. Again, unfortunate to kind of be on that losing side of things that game, but again, respect to the opposition. We know the quality that Rangers has. We know what we can do better in those kind of games. So we play them again this upcoming Wednesday that we'll talk a bit more about. But yeah, it's going to be another game, massive game. And then I would say probably this past Sunday was probably the most frustrating result. We ended up getting a tie against Hearts, who's just it's a quality team that maybe sometimes their quality doesn't get how does it say? It's not always shown maybe with the results. So they might not have the most consistent results, but they are a quality side that I think has their identity of how they're going to play and how they're going to make it hard for us to play. And it was just one of those where I think we created opportunities, but maybe it was that final action or that final pass that just let us down a bit to kind of get that a goal or two, and ended it in a drawless 0-0 game again, which is frustrating because at the end of the day, every single point matters. But on the flip side, the positive side of things is it's still in our hands. We have 5 games left to play. With 5 wins, we will win the league title. We can win the league title. Again, there could be more twists and turns, but it is still in our hands, and each game is just as important as it was. Yeah, it's quite an exciting title race we have going on.
I'm sure it's not how I say it. It's like certain leagues there's like the top team and then the rest just kind of are down here. I think it's super awesome for the
So much better,
league.
super awesome.
Yeah, I just feel like super good sounds like terrible English. Anyways, it's super good that your league is so competitive at the top, and the top 6 is obviously it's like a 3-team race pretty much now. I mean, Hearts is still in it in a way. Um, yeah, I'm Celtic, but I just think it's great for football to have a league like this that is so competitive and isn't decided just yet, like with 5 games to go. And some fans complain about that with the English Premier League, like how Arsenal haven't won the league or Liverpool haven't won the league yet, but it's been kind of just them at the top the last few weeks, and it's quite boring. And the relegation battle has been quite boring. But like your league has been, even though the bottom 6 is very separate from the top 6, I was looking at the relegation battle. It actually is quite competitive. Um, so I think that that's what you want if you're the Scottish FA.
No, and like it's what you want as a player too. Like, of course, now that I'm in it in this title race, it's really exciting. It's also stressful and scary because I was talking with my roommate, like we want to win, like I want to win so bad. We want to win so bad, and there's still so much to play for. And it's stressful because it's going to feel like every single game is going to be a cup final type game. But this is what you want. Like it's competitive football. Every single game, you have to put your best foot forward. You have to show up. Your whole team has to show up. It's going to take every single person. Yeah, it's why we play football. Like I think it's these close games that you don't know what's going to happen, and you just hope it falls in your favor. Our job is to do everything we can to kind of control what we can, and then the rest is just football. So exciting, so much to play for. But before we get into the league, as we mentioned, we do have a cup semifinal to play tomorrow. Not a game to take lightly. It is a cup game at Hampton. So excited for it. We'll see where we take it from there.
Yeah. And moving on into Tecker Talk, we'll start with women's football. NWSL table looks identical to how it finished, basically, at the end of the season in terms of the top 4 teams, with Kansas City leading the way. Obviously, Orlando won the Shield last year, so you flip-flop them a little bit. But, yeah, the order might be different, but the top 4 is the same. And, yeah, we've seen some teams really struggle at the early stages of the season. Some were maybe more obvious or more expected than others. The one that's unexpected is probably North Carolina, as Nicole wrote here. They have class players. I think, just in looking at their lineups and stuff, they're lacking really true goal scorers. And watching them, the highlights of some games, it's hard to watch games over here with the time difference, but watching highlights of some of the games, they have quite a few players that are similar in terms of creative final pass type players who are going to maybe unlock the opponent, but maybe you're missing the one that's going to finish the chance that's created by a Jaden Shaw, Ashley Sanchez. But I wouldn't doubt North Carolina just yet. I wouldn't put them to bed just yet, because I think that they will figure it out. I'm not saying they're going to win the Shield, but I think that they'll find their way out of this and figure out a way to play with what they have. And of course, the summer window is a huge opportunity to sign what they don't have. But yeah, and Portland had a really good win at home against Gotham midweek. I'm not sure why that game was being played on a Tuesday night. But yeah, then NWSL has pretty much removed midweek games, so I wonder what in the schedule caused that. I'd have to look more into that. But it's an impressive win. It's hard. I think the U.S. travel is really difficult. When you think about going from New Jersey, New York, all the way to Portland, Oregon, that's a heck of a trip, especially to do midweek. Yeah, but for Portland, after they've struggled a little bit to find some consistency early on, that was a big win, and the goals just kind of kept coming from their youngsters. I think 2 rookies scored in that game, maybe more. So,
and then kind of sticking with the U.S. theme, Trinity Rodman. It's been kind of publicized that she is struggling with a back injury, I believe, and she'll be coming over to England for treatment. And I know there's been just a lot of rumors. Is that maybe her kind of making the move to Europe for a bit and staying there? I'm guessing her priority is just to get healthy. As we know, as football players, that's all you want to be, is healthy and playing pain-free. So I'm guessing that's focus for her. But again, the rumors will always be around her because she's a quality player still a young age. And I know there's a lot of WSL teams that want her.
yeah, I feel like it could be a little bit of both. Like, it's need to get healthy because she's been struggling with that back injury for quite a bit now. And yet, like you said, we don't want to see that from such a quality player. We want her to be healthy. The timing of her being like, oh, let me get this fixed now, could be a little bit of okay, I have 4 months until the next European season begins.
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 months. And that's probably the right amount of time to get this back situation sorted. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, Washington Spirit has put a lot into her as a player, so I'm sure they wouldn't be that thrilled to see her go. But at the same time, Michelle Kang, who owns Washington Spirit, also owns London City Lionesses.
We're probably going to get promoted.
Yeah.
Potentially, high chances.
And because she owns them, or is a majority owner of them, they could be one of the promoted teams that actually gets quite a few players.
I know, it will be interesting to see that.
So I actually hadn't thought about that until you brought the Trinity Rodman thing up, but I actually think that could be a major connection that we might see.
And maybe it's through their medical team. Anyways, yeah, now we're really getting into But shifting over to England to go through kind of a bit about the WSL. Seems like the top 3 is quite decided. Potentially Manchester City might sneak in there, but we have Chelsea in first at the moment, Arsenal in second, United in third. To be honest, Chelsea hasn't won it yet, but I think the chances of them winning it are quite high. Mathematically, they'll need 1 or 2 more wins, I think, maybe even less. And then Arsenal kind of in that second place. Top 3 do get Champions League, so good for all 3. I think that's massive for maybe Manchester United, who I believe that might be their first time in Champions League.
Yeah.
I might be, again, I can't tell you 100%, but
We talked a few weeks ago about Manchester United's women's team and how I feel like they're flying under the radar and like having quite a successful season because they're still relatively new.
Yeah. And then on the opposite side of the table, we see Crystal Palace, who is most likely going to be relegated now, which is what you were saying with the whole London City. You do often see like the team that gets promoted drops back down a season or two later. It's just hard. It's a different level of football, I think, and different level of speeds. But someone like Aston Villa, who I think in the past have been a decent team, kind of that mid-table team, have been struggling this year. But they have been able to put up two massive results recently, getting a win against Liverpool and a win against Tottenham in their last two. So kind of probably securing them a little pocket of space to make sure they're not the one getting relegated.
And Mia Fishel, who honestly has one of the, I don't know her, but so I feel weird calling her this, but her nickname, Big Fish, is honestly one of the coolest in women's football. She scored her first goal for Chelsea since coming back from her ACL injury. Her last goal was February of 2024, which, yeah, I mean, she didn't, in terms of the context of how long she's been playing, she didn't waste that much time to get the goal. So I'm sure that was awesome for her. And yeah, we've talked plenty about the ACL recovery and stuff like that. Yeah, it's good to see her back out there. I hopefully can watch a game soon so I can see her play a little bit more.
Yeah, I watched actually that game, and yeah, they did well. Obviously, it was against Crystal Palace, and once she was on, they were quite comfortable. But she definitely created a few opportunities, which was I'm glad one of them was awarded with a goal. Sticking with Europe, we had the first leg of the semifinals of Champions League, which was very exciting to watch. I was able to watch both games. Did miss the first half of Chelsea Barcelona, but it's okay. In the first leg, Lyon beat Arsenal 2-1 at the Emirates. However, I think it was quite an even game. I think I was a bit more surprised. I really thought Arsenal was going to struggle maybe with Lyon's attack because their front three is ruthless and they're so good off the counter, which we saw in that game. But I didn't think Arsenal was going to have as much control as they did in that game. So they were able to keep possession, were able to create a few chances. Like I think there was probably one or two they probably should be putting away. It was the same with like Lyon had some chances that on another day they do better with that. But with that leg, I think all to play for. It's going to be hard. It'll be away at Lyon, so it'll be hard for Arsenal to turn it around maybe, but there's possibility.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting second leg. I hopefully can watch it. I think Caldente was the one who was quoted after the game, just being like, it's just a 1 goal deficit. Like they're still in it. Obviously, like you said, they're away. But of the two semifinals, that's probably the one that is more doable.
Yeah. So then the second game, Barcelona showed why they were one of the best in the world, beating Chelsea 4-1 in Spain. I think this was honestly a domination show. To be honest, Chelsea didn't look at it. Barcelona probably could have scored a few more. Chelsea did score a good goal. They did show the quality of players they do have, but it is quite a big scoreline to have to fight back. But if anybody was to do it, I think Chelsea would be the team that has a chance to do it. So I wouldn't write them off. Should still be an exciting game, but just knowing the quality Barcelona has, and they also have plenty of experienced players, I think they should be able to kind of keep that lead at least. But yeah, an exciting one. But their Chelsea center back, Bjorn, seemed to have picked an injury up in that game, and then she didn't play this past game. So Gurma's kind of been thrown back into it post-injury, which is quite the set of games to get into. Champions League against Barcelona. But will be interesting to see how she does. I don't think there's been enough time to really see her be the good defender that she is. And then shifting back across the world, if we go to Canada, the league that we had talked about was starting up. So the NSL did kick off. So far, there's been 2 games played. We had Vancouver Rise play Calgary, and that was the very first game. Rise won 1-0. And then we saw Toronto versus Montreal played in Toronto, and Montreal had won that one. I actually was able to watch, I didn't watch the Rise game, just the highlights of that one, but I was able to watch some of the Toronto game. And the football seemed okay. I think you could just see that it was a lot of new teams. Like, these teams were created 3 months ago, so they're still creating their identity, building their relationships, because I'm not too sure how many friendlies they had played prior, because everybody's in season at the moment. So I'm sure for them it's just a lot of new. So I think time will tell, maybe of like the style of play and teams' identities, but everything around the football has been very impressive. Both games had a very impressive crowd of over 14,000. The Toronto game was actually played at BMO, which for me, someone born and raised in Toronto, I've gone to those kind of games for men's games or national team games. So just to see a professional women's game happening at that pitch was really cool. And yeah, so that league seems to be doing a lot of things right on the front of away from the football with sponsor deals and just crowds and the noise around it. So it'd be exciting to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And on the men's side, since we didn't do an episode last week, we are now going to recap the second legs of the Men's Champions League quarterfinals. Yeah, quarterfinals. PSG knocked out Aston Villa 5-4 in aggregate. I watched that second leg, and Villa absolutely went for it. Conceded, was it 2 early goals? At least 1 early goal I thought that was pretty soft from Emi Martinez. Kind of came out to gather a cross-ish pass and just didn't hold on to it and spilled it. And yeah, it feels like I watched the game so long ago, but I'm actually like forgetting exactly what happened. But I just remember thinking, wow, Villa's really going for it. They are a top side in the world at this point. I think their roster, even when it comes to and watching them play in the Premier League, like the announcers, the analysts, they consistently are talking about how deep they are. Their bench is among the best in the world. I mean, even like if you look at Barca's bench, I think Villa's bench is if the same strength, if not even stronger than theirs. I mean, if you have Ollie Watkins who scored double-digit goals for however many seasons now, he's sitting on the bench, and you've got Marcus Rashford up front with his experience, albeit a rough patch the last couple of years in United. It's just been cool to see, but unfortunately, they were knocked out of Champions League. But I got to watch.
Yeah, but I do think that game followed with the next result. So Barcelona did knock out Dortmund 5-3, but actually Dortmund beat Barca in the second leg 3-1. I think both those games, I think after the first leg, I know I was talking to some of my teammates here, and just the talk of the town was PSG and Barcelona are just above the rest right now, and quality teams. Like I know I personally haven't seen PSG play too much, but watching that first leg game, I was like, wow, PSG is good. This just shows like football, like second game, both Villa and Dortmund showed Dortmund even getting the win, and so did Villa, but Dortmund getting a pretty solid 3-1 win. Anybody can play with anybody. It's the beautiful side of football. So it was just fun to watch, and I know I was really hoping Villa was gonna pull off at least putting it up to 5-5 and going into like extra time would have been cool.
I mentioned after the first leg in that podcast episode that I thought that third goal they conceded was Aston Villa in the first leg at the very end in stoppage time. I thought that was going to bite them in the end and hurt them, and it did. That was the winner for PSG to move on.
Yeah. And then we had 2 more results. So Inter Milan knocked out Bayern Munich 4-3. To be fair, I hadn't watched either of those 2 games, I think, because they were just didn't work with my schedule, so I can't say too much on the football side of things. Again, I think maybe this is just my bias, but I feel like Inter Milan isn't being talked about too much, but they are a quality team and a quality side, and they could be one to kind of throw some more surprises as like Champions League goes on.
I
Any
think with all
thoughts?
the attacking football that goes on in the Champions League, Inter has kind of the best of both worlds, where they have this really stout, strong defense, well coached, well organized, and then they have the two-headed monster up front that just gets them goals. And then the midfielders are just kind of in between, doing all the dirty work. And I think that they have a really good balance. But that might be why they're not as talked about, because it's they're a little bit more defensive. But I mean, they are still very exciting up front, especially
It's
in
very
Serie A.
classic Italian football.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I never really liked Italian football, but maybe that's my own fault. But then probably the biggest surprise of this matchup was Arsenal knocking out Real Madrid 5-1 on aggregate. So Arsenal won the first game, and then they even went on to win the second game. When I think the second leg, going into the second leg, the talk was Real Madrid might do a massive comeback. Like it's Real Madrid and it's Arsenal. Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Yeah. So like it was this whole build up, but then I don't know. Arsenal just I actually don't think I watched the second leg, but Arsenal just showed again maybe their quality, or Real Madrid maybe showed some of their, I guess you could you say, an experience, or in the sense of they have they have almost all world-class players, but kind of the tweet you had sent to me was
Yeah. And there were Courtois was saying after the game, like, we're serving the ball into, like, last season they had Joselu up front as like the 9 that would come off the bench in the last like 20 minutes and score them a header if they needed. They were like, we serve all these balls into the box, but we don't have anybody that's going to get on the end of them. Like, Mbappe can head the ball for sure, but only if it's like he's not going to go searching for a header in the box, like a towering header like
yeah.
Ronaldo would or Benzema.
I think they can do it. I just don't know if they want to do it. Like I
Yeah,
think
I was kind of, when you were saying like inexperience, I can't quite find the word for them either because it's not an experience. Like, they have experience. Vinicius, maybe. I think that they're immature.
yeah, maybe that's the word. Again, we don't know them, but that's what it looks like from the side. But yeah, props to Arsenal for getting that result. That's a massive result, especially if we flip to Premier League. Arsenal probably are falling short. They're gonna probably in second at least this season. Liverpool haven't secured it, but they can secure the league title this weekend upcoming, which is massive for Liverpool. As a Liverpool, I don't know if I can call myself a fan. A supporter that enjoys good football, and I've been a Liverpool supporter for quite some years now. But yeah, as it'll be a fun one to watch this weekend to see if they can win the title and close that out.
What do
But
you
on the
think?
flip,
Sorry, what do you think of Alexander Arnold's celebration against
yeah,
Leicester?
personally, I didn't really look too much into it because you can never know with this stuff. I think like I'm still on the fence of like, is he actually leaving, or is all this been kind of built up? And the only reason I say that is because I feel like even with Mo Salah, like it was all this like noise of, oh, Liverpool's not offering him a new contract, so and then they sign him, and it's this massive deal. Could it be kind of the same with Trent? I don't know. It could also just be he's trying to stay on the good side of Liverpool fans. I don't know, but I also don't like. I don't think you can hate on him if he does leave. He's been like I am so for experiencing something else. I'm not a Real Madrid fan, so I don't love that. Opportunities like that do come once in a lifetime. Sometimes you just have to take it. It might not work out, but again, we live once. I don't know. I think that's at least what I think.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion on like whether he stays or goes, to be honest. But I just think it'll be like, I just thought that was a real interesting thing to do at that time. And I think it'll be really interesting in a few weeks' time when we find out what his decision is or what's actually happening, because then it'll make. I think that moment will be like circled back to whatever he
Probably.
does.
Yeah, I agree. But in that game, Liverpool, the match winner was against Leicester City, who have now been relegated, which is always sad to hear. But Jamie Vardy has announced that he's leaving. Who has been there for what, 11 years? I don't have the it's been a while. He's been a big leader for them, a goal scorer for them. But again, it's football. Players move on in their career when they have. He's getting older too, though.
I'm curious to see where he's going to go because I kind of expected him to leave, but I don't know. I almost thought that him leaving was just going to be him retiring, not to go
Yeah.
somewhere else. Because I mean, he didn't have the greatest of seasons, but I mean, I've heard Everton is in the mix, maybe MLS. We'll see. But
Yeah.
lastly, for Tucker Talk, unless if Nicole wants to go into anything else, I want to see your thoughts on the Mbappe red card ban. That was one of the worst tackles I have seen in a long time, and he only got a 1 match ban. What do you think?
That was a bad tackle. That's all. I can say that. I honestly like half watch it because I have a really hard time watching people get injured.
Well, thankfully he wasn't injured. Thankfully.
Yeah, I know. He seemed to get lucky away with that. And I think the kind of thing going around is like, is it a one match ban to make sure he could play the Barcelona game? Which, if that is the case, it's wrong. Surprising one match. I feel like players have gotten so away or have gotten worse. A lot more banned matches for a lot less worse. I just went in a circle there, but you know what I'm trying to say. So people have gotten away with yeah, much less. Yeah, there you go. So again, some things you just can't control. It's football. People make decisions and you just watch from the side.
There's people higher up there that we'll never understand.
Yeah. Well, again, much more we can talk about in football. Lots going on. It's the juicy part of the season in many places, but we'll stick with that for now. And now we will have our guest join us.
Hi, everyone. Please welcome Michele Vasconcelos to the podcast this week. It's a special episode, Michele. We'll actually call you Murph because that's how I know you. But yeah, it's a special episode. This is episode 10, so kind of a little bit of a landmark for us. But yeah, as I said, I'm calling you Murph for this podcast. So can you tell us a little bit about your name situation and how Murph came to be and why you go by Michele?
Yeah. So growing up, obviously my maiden name is Michelle Murphy, and there was always two Michelles that I grew up with. One of my best friends, her name's Michelle Staples. So right off the bat, when you have two kids with the same name, it's a bit difficult. And so she was always Staples, I was always Murphy, and with soccer, it's always stuck. Even after I got married and changed my name, I have always been Murph. Actually, in Spain, they call me Michelle just because Murph is a bit hard. And every time I'm still like, I'm never used to it. So, Murph,
Okay,
always with soccer.
Murph it is. But yeah, Murph is a professional footballer currently with Levante Belladonna in Spain. But you've had a really successful career so far across the NWSL. But we'll start a little bit earlier, going like back to like you starting playing. Can you tell us about your early soccer journey?
My early, like, are we talking as a tiny little kid,
Uh,
age 5?
Sure, like just your route through Utah and all that towards BYU, and then we'll get a little bit into the BYU aspect.
Okay. Yeah. So born and raised in Utah. I was born into a huge soccer family. My siblings were all a lot older than me and already played soccer. So I feel like as soon as I could walk, I had a ball at my feet and I just fell in love with the game really early. And I just played for clubs in Utah, never really a big club, mostly smaller clubs, but I had great coaches that really helped me and challenged me. And I always knew I wanted to go to BYU. And so, I just tried to kind of push myself and I played, I think the first game they saw me was actually high school, which I feel like is kind of strange because usually it's at bigger tournaments, but our high school team was playing in a state final at actually the current stadium that the Utah Royals play in. And so they saw me there and then I was a sophomore and then I went to the summer camps and committed to BYU. I loved my time there. I had 5 years. I tore my ACL my second year there, so I had a fifth year. And yeah, I thought about playing pro. It was on the back of my mind, but I mean, as you guys know, the league wasn't really big then and wasn't super established, and I actually didn't know a lot of girls playing there. I had played with Kaylia Ojai in high school in Utah. And so I knew she was playing for the Dash. And so she was kind of, I had watched her and thought, okay, maybe like, this would be cool. And I remember by the time my junior and senior year came along, I was married at the time and I kind of sat down with my husband and we talked about it. And, he just really encouraged me and pushed me. He's like, hey, why not? Like, let's do it. And he's like, just try to have like the best senior year you can have with stats with goals and assists. And so I tried to do that and then got drafted after that.
Well, going back to the BYU days, what is it about BYU's women's soccer program that makes it so special? Because obviously there's a lot of tradition with the Mormon culture and stuff like that in Utah, but
Yeah.
also so many players have gone to play professionally from that program. So tell us a little bit about the tradition and the history there.
Yeah. Ooh, that is a great question. It's always just been known as a powerhouse in Utah. Like when I think of like the best, maybe, but like the best college team in Utah, like I think of BYU. And so, they get to pick like the best talent out of Utah. And I knew it was a program I wanted to go to. I think before I had got there, they hadn't had a big history of making it to the tournament. But my freshman year, we made it back to the Elite Eight, and that was the first time we had done that in a while. And then I think since then, not since then, but always, I think BYU has really established that culture of just winning, like a winning mentality. And I remember even games that like we weren't winning, it was, I don't want to say stressful, but kind of, like it's like the school wasn't satisfied with that, our coach wasn't satisfied with that. And so it really has just become that culture that it's like we win, or if we don't, then we figure out how to win. So it set pretty high standards for me, but it was really good and it pushed me.
Yeah, and the fan base is awesome. I always see
Yeah.
videos when it comes to the NCAA tournament around in November. There's always videos of your field and the fans just being super rowdy.
Yeah.
It's always,
And not even tournament time only. Like we would sell out, and it's a little stadium. I mean, little, like 5,000 fans. But yeah, we would sell it out. People would be sitting on the roofs of other buildings. It's a really great atmosphere.
yeah, and it's a beautiful campus. I got to see it visiting one of my friends that is graduating from there actually this week.
Oh,
That
awesome.
last year, and it was, yeah, it's beautiful. And that's
Yeah.
also where you met your husband that you mentioned, where you met Pedro.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that and you meeting, yeah, your now husband.
Yeah. So I didn't know it at the time, but he was on the men's team. He had just gotten home from a church mission. And yeah, we kind of, I like think the first time I saw him was at a teammate's wedding of his. Of course, BYU, everyone's getting married young. But I saw him at the wedding and I was like, I swear, like I've seen him around, but I couldn't place him. And he actually had a pretty thick accent back then. He's Brazilian. And so he started talking to my brother and speaking Portuguese, and he got my brother's number, which like we always joke about. I'm like, it's kind of weird leaving and getting my brother's number, but we actually didn't start dating for a while. He was taking me out for like a month, and then I started dating one of his teammates. So that didn't go over well. Pedro, he jokes that he's like the only person to ever get a red card in a blue and white scrimmage. The inter squad scrimmages.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the kid, he like didn't even foul him, but Pedro got pissed and like kicked him in the shin, just like straight red in a scrimmage. I'm like, oh my gosh. But anyways, I think we were already married at that time, so I'm like, Pedro, like, but yeah. So it was fun. We were good friends for a while, and I think that is honestly what made me like him so much is that I saw him in that aspect before the romantic. So that was great. We could really develop that friendship before.
Yeah, it's such a nice story. I've obviously heard it before, but but yeah, you mentioned getting drafted. You got drafted 11th overall in 2017 to Chicago, and I know that something happened shortly after that. Do you want to take us into that part of the journey?
Yeah. I mean, so I couldn't attend the draft because we were already planning on going to Brazil. And I don't know, I guess I could have changed my mind, but I was like, no, I want to be in Brazil. I can watch the draft. So we went, and I remember being just really excited. Chicago was actually not on my radar. I had talked to a couple other teams, and then they came in last second. So I was really excited to go there, and then yeah, I found out I was pregnant shortly after. So, I wanted to tell the coach in person. I know the league still, even if you get drafted doesn't mean you have a contract, but it sounded like he was like pretty excited about me, and so I actually flew to Chicago to tell him. And we were sitting outside the field in these chairs. He's like, you're going to score a lot of goals on this field and like going into all this, and I was like, can we just stop for just a minute? I was like, I'm actually pregnant. I would still love to like come back and play, but I just wanted to like tell you in person. Luckily, it was Rory Dames. He had had two kids at this point because I heard before that he was quite mean and even a little bit mean afterwards. But he was really nice about it, and he was like really happy for me, and he's like, "Congratulations, we'll see you next year, and this is exciting for you to be able to add another person to your family." And so he said, "We'll see you next year." So I remember visiting, and I was like pretty pregnant when I visited, which was kind of awkward. I don't know, just on the side. I was like watching the girls. I think at first they were like, "Who is that?" And then finally, he introduced me. But yeah, I just remember feeling kind of like awkward. I was like, "This is like so weird being pregnant and being here." But it all worked out, and went to Chicago in 2018.
Yeah, and now you have is she 7 or 8, Scarlett?
She's 7. Yeah, she'll be 8 this year.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know.
But yeah, we'll get into talking maybe about being a mom in the NWSL or as a professional a little later. But you did play that following season for Chicago,
I
um,
did.
which is awesome. I know you said like your talk with the coach went well and stuff, but I feel like this was way before the CBA and way before any of that. So like for
Mm-hmm.
that to have still happened for you, I think is really awesome. Because yeah, there weren't things in place back then to like
Mm-hmm.
allow.
And exactly, I hadn't even signed a contract either.
Yeah,
So they definitely like took a chance on me. I think there was like 7 or 8 rookies that came in 2018, and they only had 2 contracts. I would not say I was at my best at all. I think I was like 8 months after I had had Scarlett, but luckily like Rory believed in me and gave me a chance.
yeah. Well, maybe we will talk about that now. Just like being a young mom as a professional, like what is that like? I mean, there's so it's I don't think many people talk about you in that aspect.
Yeah.
There's so many other players that are, big names like Alex Morgan. Oh, she
Mhm.
gets pregnant to Charlie, comes back, all this stuff. But I want to give you your flowers because I don't think anybody really talks about your story. Because, like you said,
Yeah.
you got drafted and then had Scarlett before you ever officially became a professional. And
Yeah.
came back and absolutely have killed it ever since.
I don't know about that, but I think that probably was the hardest part for me was never having been a professional athlete. And, I knew what college was like, but it is quite a big jump. And then having to do that as a mom with a new baby and, to be honest, not a lot of help. Well, a lot of help with my husband, but I mean, as far as the club goes, like you mentioned, the CBA in place now in the NWSL really protects moms, provides like childcare money, allows them to fly with you. We didn't have that. Pedro and I literally moved there. I think my first contract, this is so embarrassing. I think it was like $15,000 for the year. So we moved there and not even the guarantee of a contract. We moved across the country, paid for the whole move. He luckily was working from home, so he would watch Scarlett while I was at practice while he was working from home. And then basically I would just come home, take her right away, and then he would keep working until later. So it was really difficult. I don't think I was the best at managing it all in terms of, as a professional athlete, you have to be super strict with like sleep and diet and all that. And not to say I wasn't eating well, but with a baby, your distractions are much more. And I don't think I was fueling myself properly, was getting not great sleep with a newborn. So it was really, really hard. That first year, honestly, I struggled most of the year. Just kind of finding myself, finding that confidence, trying to find my self as a player, as a professional in the league, but doing that with a child.
For sure. And you have gone on to play for a bunch of other teams in the NWSL.
I've been around now.
But you're like you've played for Chicago, Utah, at the old Utah Royals,
For like 2 weeks, I think.
Kansas City, Sevilla in Spain, Portland, Thorns, Utah again, and now Levante, Ballador. Like, take us a little bit through your NWSL journey and like what you like experienced in your like first couple years and like the last stint with Utah and how much has changed.
Yeah. Um, Man, thinking back to the beginning, like I never thought I would be that player that has played for so many teams. But I feel like the players in the NWSL, that's just how it is. Like they have a resume of like 4 to 5 teams. It's very rare that you have one player who stays at the same club. So, I had 3 years in Chicago and never dreamed that I would be like team hopping after that. But yeah, I opted to come home in 2020, but the league was really still in its infancy, honestly, compared to what it is now. We were playing in good stadiums for the most part, but I think even New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC was playing at Rutgers. I just remember traveling to, I think they played at like a college field and traveling there. There was like no showers. The bathrooms were awful. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like is this professional soccer? That sounds bad, but you're kind of surprised, especially going from everything that you have in college. So the league has transformed immensely since I even started in 2018. It's been really cool to see the growth of it and the protection for players. But like you mentioned, I was here in Utah, the first Utah for a little bit, but I think one thing with the league and we're seeing more of is just quality of coaches increasing. I just feel like a lot of the most recent teams that I've gone to, it's either been like a new coach who doesn't have much experience and then gets fired, or even a first time coach, or there's like misconduct. And so I think, we still have to see that growth from the league. But yeah, I was in Utah for I think 2 weeks and the coach was already put on leave. Then I heard rumors the team was getting sold. So went to Kansas City and same thing, hired like a club coach, So it's tough to see professional sports and us as athletes who work so hard and then to not get like quality coaches. But I kind of derailed there off of the thing. But yeah, that's been honestly a lot of my experience in the last few years is teams with, yeah, just new coaches.
Yeah.
Very new coaches.
Funny you mentioned the Rutgers field and like what was sky blue and stuff, because that was like when I would go to games, I guess as a teenager.
Wow. Thanks, Emily.
That's where no, way before you were in the league, but yeah, it might have even been when it was the previous league as well. They played there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just funny because I would go to those games and I'd be like in awe, like I want to be a professional, and
Yeah.
like those were the standards then.
Yeah.
But you talk about player protections and things like that, and the making sure that the league has better coaches for each team and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. You were part of the Players Association, right, during the CBA negotiations?
Yeah. I don't know if I was part of the players associations, but I was helping with the negotiations.
Okay, yeah. What was that like? And just what were some of the things that you were really passionate about during that process?
For me, obviously, motherhood and like child care protection, that to me was really cool to hear. Even the players who didn't have kids fighting for that, I thought that was really cool. And just the protection around maternity leave and things like that. But I think for me, the biggest was salaries increasing. And also free agency for players. I don't think any player should have to get stuck going to a place that, first of all, they don't want to go, or they don't get picked up but the team still has their rights. That stuff all, it just didn't make sense. So it was really cool to see everyone kind of banding together, like these are our non-negotiables and the things that we were willing to give up and not give up, because with anything you have to give and take, especially with those negotiations. And so that was really cool, and it was interesting to see kind of some of the things that the league would come back with, and we're all like, like, what? Like, how did they get those numbers, or how, like, where did this come from? And so it was a lot of back and forth. It took a long time. I think so. I could be wrong on the dates, but I think it started around August. They thought we would be done by Christmas that year, and it went like well into the next year. So it took a very long time.
Yeah, I think when the CBA was signed, that was my rookie year, and
Wh-
the I remember coming into the league and I'm just so like, whoa, there's a lot like of
Yeah.
new stuff that's happening. In addition to like me being like a first time professional and like also the NWSL, the PA is also like about to sign this massive CBA and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to recognize the players like you, like yourself, because like at the time I was like, oh, that's awesome, CBA, like this is the perfect time for me to enter the league. And then over the course of that year, when the PA would come talk to us, our reps would like just mention different things.
Hmm.
I began to realize how much time the player representatives put into making that happen. Because I think from a college perspective, I thought of like I was a SAC rep. I thought, okay, it's like a monthly meeting, whatever.
Yeah.
I felt like similar vibes, but no, it's like hardcore. You guys put so much time and effort into that, and I think it's important that people know that, even like the fans, that you guys put in like a lot of time.
I wouldn't even say like, yeah, I mean, I attended the calls, but there was so much more behind the scenes too. And, there's been players that have been in the league since, when was the start? Was it 2012?
Yeah, 11 or 12.
Yeah, that who they knew so much more and had so much more input. So I remember there were a couple things that initially I was like, oh yeah, like I would say yes to that. And they're like, no. And here's why. And so it really got me thinking in my mind. I'm like, okay, yeah, like we do deserve more. So I would say, players like that put in hundreds of hours.
Yeah. Well, also, uh, we talked about you were in Utah briefly
Mhm.
in 2020, but you did return to Utah last season for the revamping of the Royals. I know you're obviously not there right now, but I assume and I obviously know that it was a huge deal to come home and um, yeah, be in Utah again. How was that move for you guys? And yeah, what was that?
Yeah. So I had been at Portland and I honestly loved Portland. We loved the city. That was the first city where it really felt like we put down roots. Scarlett had started kindergarten there and we just really fell in love with the community. So it was tough to leave, but like you mentioned, like I was really excited to be able to come home and play in my hometown with my family. We'd been out of the state for most of Scarlett's growing up, and so it was fun to, bring her back home to cousins and be with my siblings. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience.
Yeah, obviously the season didn't go to plan. I
Yeah.
remember your nephews are
Mm-hmm.
RSL Academy.
Yep.
I just thought it was so cool, and like that's I want that I want Philly to get a team eventually, because
Yeah.
I think about like, oh, how cool would it be to just like be around family and like go to work every day. Like at some point, like, you start your soccer journey at home and like full circle. Like, so I've always thought when watching you, Cam, other people on the team, because obviously the club brought a lot of Utah players home.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah, I always thought it was so cool that you guys kind of had everyone around you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, hopefully there's plenty more cities that the NWSL will, or USL, whatever, will head to eventually.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely growing. I feel like they're announcing new teams like every couple of years. It's really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, now you're at Levante Belladonna, as we mentioned, in Spain. How's it going there? I know it's just outside Barcelona, so the weather can't be too bad.
Yeah, not too bad, right? And you're freezing cold up north.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been nice. I mean, it definitely is still spring, but it's like a 10-minute walk to the beach. Palm trees, it's a great place to be.
Nicole's in Glasgow, Scotland, so
Oh,
not
amazing.
much better in terms of.
Not much better. Maybe slightly warmer than Ems, but lots of gray skies.
Yeah, it is a bit tough, I know, but I'm sure the summers are awesome.
Yeah. What's the Oh my gosh, what's the league called?
La Liga.
Liga F.
La Liga. How
Yeah.
how is that league like from your perspective? What's like, yeah, all that. I don't know much
Yeah.
about the Spanish league, so if you can give us.
hmm so the league here is definitely still growing. It is interesting to come from the NWSL where we're playing in these huge stadiums with really developed facilities, to then come here. I think the top couple teams, let's say Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, definitely have more money and are more established. And so they have really great facilities and a lot of help for the girls. But it's quite a significant drop after that. Luckily, I think starting next year, they're not allowing turf anymore. Because a few teams do play on turf. We play and train on turf, and it is not good turf. But, it's like it's tough. But yeah, like I said, it's growing, and it sounds like their players are starting to fight for more. The league is quite different too from the US. I feel like the US is a lot more transition, fast, physical, whereas here, definitely less of that and more of just like a slower pace moving the ball. So that's kind of nice just because I'm like, I don't mind not transitioning for 90 minutes. But yeah, it's quite different from the NWSL.
Yeah, I know for those that haven't watched Murph play, Murph is like super technical, played very similar. We were always on the same page in training and stuff in Utah. Technical, you like the ball at your feet, combined with others. So I'm sure that league suits you, and hopefully maybe get some more opportunities as the rest of the season goes on. But you guys do play Barcelona next week, which I'm sure is a little bit scary, but is also so cool at the same time. Are you
It
super
is
excited
cool.
for
Yeah, I'm really excited. I played them twice in Sevilla. It's always really cool to play against some of the best players in the world, and especially a club like Barcelona. It's really exciting. Typically we don't have anyone really in the stands, and they're already talking for this game. They're like, yeah, I think it's going to be sold out, like 3,000 people. The stadium's very small, but it's just cool to see the draw that Barcelona brings too.
that? I thought you were going to ask.
Sorry. So obviously we've gone through football. Em covered a lot of that because she knew kind of your personal career
Mhm.
so far. And obviously you unfortunately not obviously, but like most women footballers, you did experience the ACL injury, not once, but twice, I believe. How was that for you going through that timing wise? When was that? And kind of, yeah, obviously both Em and I have gone through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just share your experience with that.
It sucks, huh? It's like being a part of a club when you tear your ACL. My first one was my sophomore year. Luckily, I did it at the beginning of the year so I could redshirt. But it was tough, It's really lonely, a lonely journey. I remember just feeling super isolated from my teammates just because you're not training. Instead of sprinting and playing, you're learning how to bend your knee again. So it's just like mentally really tough. I remember keeping a journal and just writing, like, why? This is so hard. But you do learn a lot about yourself going through it. And I remember stepping on the field for the first time again and just feeling such gratitude for the game. And then my second time was my second year in the league. Scarlett, I think, was 2. And I remember, yeah, the game, both of them were non-contact. I had other issues going on with my body, so I think I was compensating. So that's a good, out there to like not push yourself. Well, I think we always want to push ourselves and grind, but when you have things going on with your body, you need to get them taken care of instead of keeping playing through it. And so, I just went to step and turn and just blew out my knee. And I just remember thinking, like, can I do this again? Like, no way. I do not want to do this again. But it's like, you have to. So, yeah, that one I did ACL and meniscus, and I was on crutches, non-weight bearing for 6 weeks. And I had a 2-year-old. It was so hard. We would go to the park and I would just like crutch behind her, just like watching her just run everywhere. Yeah, I mean, you figure out a way to get through it. And luckily, I felt like very fortunate to do it in college and then as a professional because I had a lot of help and a lot of people pushing me. I feel like it's tough as a youth player. I've seen my nephew go through it as a 14-year-old, and I don't know, it's tough. They just don't have the same push and propel and all the things that we have as professional athletes.
Yeah, yeah. I had the same reaction when I tore it the second time. I was like,
Mhm.
can I do this again? And yeah, it's unfortunate, like you said, to be part of the club. Obviously, the three of us have been through it, and it's not fun. But yeah, you learn so much about yourself,
Yeah.
and it's just part of your story. And I think
Mhm.
covered pretty much every part of your story so far. And there's just probably so much more in depth that we could get into. But like, yeah, we almost left out the 2 ACL part, and that's still like such a big thing. We talked about you being
Yeah.
a mom, and then you just mentioned, which I didn't know, that Scarlett was 2, and you were non-weight bearing
Mhm.
6 weeks. Those are the things that people wouldn't know about you, and the
Yeah.
fact that you persevered through that. Also, I mean, I'm sure seeing your daughter there gave you that extra motivation to push through, and like you just, I mean, I remember last year for the home games, hearing her after the games like scream for everyone's autograph and all that. Like,
Yeah.
for her to have that experience, like some players have kids, and their kids maybe are like 4 by the time they're still playing, but like Scarlett is pretty grown now, sees everything, interacts with your teammates, and I just think that that's so cool and unique compared to maybe some other experiences.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and it's fun for me to have her around such strong, capable women too. Like I always loved having you guys over for dinner and just seeing her interact. She was really shy in my first couple years, and so seeing her come out of her shell and yeah, play with you and with our other teammates in Utah was really fun. And especially after the games, like you said, getting autographs. People always like, "Oh, does she think it's cool?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think she even realizes it, but that's almost the best part for me is because I can go home and be her mom instead of a professional soccer player. I mean, you know how hard it is after a day of training that sucked and you're just so mad. And like all you want to do is dwell. Well, you don't want to, but you can't stop dwelling on it. Whereas I come home and it's like, okay, mom, when are we going to play? It's like, okay, on to the next. Like, but that's been really good for me
Yeah, and
and
she's
kind of
playing
help.
too, and she's a little baller, so
Yeah,
everyone
she
watch
is
out
playing.
because she's on the way up. And her dad, he's a little technical maestro too, so
Yeah.
both her parents are leading the way in terms of that. So I'm excited to see where she ends up.
It's been fun. We found a couple teams for her to practice with here. She's always like the smallest one, but it's just funny. Me and Pedro were always like on the sideline. I'm like, hey, we need to not talk. Like, we just try to keep our mouths shut because it's hard once you know the game. Or now that I've taken like my coaching licenses, I'm like, oh, why are they talking for so long? Like, oh, you should be playing more. And I'm like, stop, just enjoy, But we just try to keep it positive with her and just have fun.
That's awesome.
It's quite cool. She'll get the whole like European youth like experience because that's something like I always feel like we kind of missed out on. Like just it's different. It's different in Europe.
Yeah, I know.
They just live the sport.
Yeah, it is really cool. I know, especially I always talk with my husband because he grew up in Brazil. He would just go home after school and like play on the streets from like 3 until 8 p.m. So not even in an academy, but just playing constantly. And I'm like, that's like what we're missing, in the United States. It's just that like playing all the time for fun. Everything is so structured.
We definitely need more of that. Hopefully the World Cup in 2026 for the men and then the one with the women, hopefully that just like increases the soccer
Yeah.
in the US. But all right, we are going to head into the rapid fire portion.
Oh
Ready?
no.
It's just
Like,
Is it
the questions aren't that rapid.
no, they're not.
okay?
So just like question portion, we should just call it.
Okay.
All right, Nicole and I will alternate. But first one, the highlight of your career so far.
Winning the NWSL championship with Portland.
Okay. The best NWSL venue you have played at.
Ooh. Portland, Providence Park, packed stadium. It's not grass, but still, it's nice to play in front of a packed stadium.
Yeah, that stadium's cool. Favorite players, male and female.
Favorite male player, I hate to say Messi, but probably Messi. And favorite female player, right now, Claudia Pina. I love watching her
All right.
on Barcelona. Yeah, she's been awesome.
She's class. She's our age,
Yeah,
I didn't know.
she's
Okay.
young, yeah.
This one might be a bit hard. Mountains of Utah or beaches of Barcelona?
Ooh, that is hard. Right now, since I'm here, beaches of Barcelona.
If you could change one rule in football, what would it be?
Ooh, offsides, maybe. I don't know.
What would you change about it? Just remove it?
No, not remove it, but like offsides by this much is crazy, or like an arm. Um, so yeah, maybe like just, and I feel like they've kind of changed this already, but you know how like it's usually feet, but then sometimes it's like, oh, if it's like a shoulder or something. But yeah, just maybe a little more lenient. I don't know.
Okay, last one. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be and why?
I think to not care what other people think or coaches or players or anything. Just because I saw this today actually, like football is a game of opinions. So many players were rejected. I think it was, gosh, Pedri playing for Barcelona, who's like what the best midfielder in the world right now, was rejected by Real Madrid. Kylian Mbappe, it named all these, and so we each bring something unique as players, and I think when we let other people's opinions come in and we let it change us, I would say no, just play the best you can and just be you.
That's awesome. And actually, Nicole and I basically had that same thing last week on our episode, or 2 weeks ago on our episode. We talked about the same thing.
Oh, really?
It's great that you bring that back up because it just makes us sound better now.
Mm-hmm.
But also, one thing that I really enjoyed about being your teammate last year in Utah was like during the really hard moments, you would always say like nobody can take our joy away.
Mm-hmm.
We can always go out there and enjoy football.
Yeah.
Just along with kind of what you were just saying of like it's a game of opinions. Like there's going to be all this stuff, but we can control just loving the sport that forever. So I always like appreciated when we would go out to train and let's just have our joy today.
Yeah, and us like juggling after, but you really do. I mean, at the end of the day, you can only control yourself, so just focus on that and do what you can.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Murph, for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I'm glad we could catch up a little bit during this. But
You guys are the best.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Spain.
It was great to have Murph join us. Now, for quote of the week, Em and I decided to do something a little different for this week, as it is episode 10, which kind of feels like a little milestone in this little project we kind of decided to take up. And we're just going to share some of our thoughts, what we think is next. And yeah, Em, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I just think it's exciting. We're on episode 10, which, it hasn't been super long just yet. Hopefully more milestones to come. I think when we've talked about for a few years starting this, but never anything further than just like the idea. But then in the off season, or my off season, your winter break, when we really discussed starting this, it was, I think the most important thing for me was that we were going to catch up more regularly, because it's can be difficult at times, especially the last couple of years when you've been in Europe and I've been in the US on a completely different time zone. We go long periods of time without seeing each other. And we do text often. We used to Snapchat every day. I just don't really Snapchat anymore. Yeah, like I think the best part of doing this podcast is just that we catch up all the time and get a large part of our friendship is rooted in football. And I think that aspect of our friendship is special. It's unique. I mean, I don't talk this much football with anybody else. So yeah, my thoughts so far are just that it's been fun. It is noticeable it's obviously it's tough. Some weeks we're not able to do it. Like we've only skipped 2 weeks, I think, so far, which is good considering our schedules. But it is noticeable when we do miss those weeks because I'm like, oh, I haven't talked to Nicole this week. So that's a good thing. I think it's fun. And looking forward to more. I hope that maybe more people can start engaging with our content because I think it's important for everyone to hear these stories that we're sharing. But yeah, I'm just enjoying the process of doing it. It's no stress and it's just fun.
I'm really glad it's no stress for you. Sometimes I feel a little stressed, but no, honestly,
not gonna lie, but
sometimes it's a lot on our plate. But again, I think for me, obviously everything you said, I agree with 100%. And I think again, if a single one of these episodes helps a singular player, person who's ever listening, a little girl or someone even in our similar shoes now, if one of our episodes kind of was a helping hand, I'm already happy. And then I think having this kind of platform for players to share stories that maybe kind of fall under the radar often. Today's, I think, was a great example of that, where we have a player who had a kid before all of the CBA stuff and before all this is becoming maybe more common and more supported. She did that before it was kind of cool. Not cool, but kind of, yeah. And like nobody really's talked about it. She hasn't really had an opportunity to share that, and I think that's what's so special about our podcast is we're giving that platform for people who maybe can't really get on that big platform to share their story. But again, every story is so unique, and I think each one is so important. We're going to share more stories of people. We're going to share more parts of our career and our stories because I think, yeah, sometimes it's cool to hear someone go through something maybe similar to yourself, and that's kind of our goal over this podcast. And yeah, again, I think you said it. We want to continue to try to engage more people and hopefully touch more lives, and that's our goal. But again, we do understand it's a slow process, but knowing us two, we're just going to keep chugging along and hit more milestones, and then hopefully more of you guys will listen, and we'll be able to kind of provide you guys with content that you'd like to see.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for this milestone episode 10, everybody. It was fun to have Murph on today, and she was great. Her story, like Nicole said, is unique and untold a bit. And I think it was nice for us to get to talk to her today. So keep engaging with our content, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.